I have proof that they are brainwashing you and I to fall into a trap that will keep us in the hamster wheel of life, massively confused and wondering, is there more for me? And the scary part seems to be working. It's very similar to the hit movie, The Truman Show. In The Truman Show, Jim Carrey is tricked into thinking that he is living in reality. But he was actually born and living his whole life in a contained TV show with hidden cameras. When he tries to connect the dots and escape, they attempt to distract and destroy his plans to discover the truth. Now, the longer they can keep you stuck and confused, the worse your chances are of getting out. So, please listen closely and don't miss any important details. So my name is Ruslan, and after escaping communism in the former Soviet Union as a child, I became a full-time entrepreneur primarily in the music industry in 2015. 2020, I pivoted to YouTube, and I've grown all three of my channels to a total subscriber base of over 800,000 subscribers. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. So if you're new here, or if you're not new here, please make sure you're subscribed. There's a huge percentage of the people that watch, unfortunately, are not subscribed. All right, let's get into the video. Now, before I get into the proof I have about this trap, check out what these different public figures, celebrities, influencers, CEO say about you needing to follow your passion. And I want you to be paying attention to what sticks out to you in these clips.
I definitely think the best thing to do is work at a job that you're passionate about and make a lot of money. That's the best thing to do.
You have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. And it's totally true. And the reason is because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up.
There's a passion attached to me trying to simply inspire and motivate those that just simply aren't getting motivating messages on a day-to-day.
And he said, listen, the thing about passion is you got to have it, but only a moron would follow it. Bring your passion with you in all things, but never ever follow it.
Now, did you notice something interesting here? All of these different people are highly successful, yet had very conflicting advice regarding this concept of passion. Now, when we look up the definition of passion, the first thing that comes up is a strong and barely controllable emotion. But there's a second definition of passion we're going to look at in a moment. But first, let's unpack this idea together. When it comes to pursuing a career, some people would say that you want to follow a strong and barely controllable emotion. That if you follow your heart, then therefore things will work out. That if you do something you love, it won't ever feel like work. Other people would say that following a barely controllable emotion is not a good idea. So which is it? Should you follow your passion? Should your passion be the North Star of your life? Or should you follow where the opportunity is and quote unquote bring your passion along with you? Jeremiah 17:9 says, the heart, where most of us would ascribe our passion comes from, is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? In Mark 7:20, Jesus says, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance. All these things come from inside and defile a person. But what if I told you there was a different definition of passion? What if I told you there was a definition of passion that was more congruent to what the scriptures actually taught us about life, purpose, meaning, and our assignment on this side of eternity? But before we get there, listen to something that Jim Carrey, oddly enough, the same Jim Carrey that played in The Truman Show, said to the people at Homeboy Industries regarding escaping the trap. Listen closely.
I want to speak to the fact that I've had some challenges in the last couple of years myself. Ultimately, I believe that suffering leads to salvation. And in fact, it's the only way. That we have to somehow accept and not deny, but feel our suffering and feel our losses. And then we make one of two decisions. We either decide to go through the gate of resentment, which leads to vengeance, which leads to self-harm, which leads to harm to others, or we go through the gate of forgiveness, which leads to grace. Your being here is an indication that you've made that decision already. You've made the decision to walk through the gate of forgiveness, to grace, just as Christ did on the cross. He suffered terribly, and he was broken by it to the point of doubt and a feeling of absolute abandonment, which all of you felt. Then there was a decision to be made. So the decision was to look upon the people who were causing that suffering, or the situation that was causing that suffering, with compassion and with forgiveness. And that's what opens the gates of heaven for all of us. So I wish that for all of you. I wish that for myself. I know that, you know what I've suffered, most of you have suffered worse than that, but that's why I admire you, because you're here. You will have grace, because this decision has been made. So I'm so glad to be with you. And to be a part of this day, Father Greg.
Now just stay with me for a moment. That was Jim Carrey speaking at Homeboy Industries. We're going to talk about what Homeboy Industries is in a minute, but there's quite a few things that he said there. He talked about how sacrifice and suffering is often the pathway through salvation. He talked about that when you go through suffering, that the best option is forgiveness, because if you don't forgive, you tend to choose being resentful, and being resentful leads to vengeance, and vengeance leads to harm of others and harm of yourself. There's a lot in there, but the most important thing is this motif of Christ choosing suffering. And that may be a clue in helping us decipher this trap around following your passion and following your heart. But before we get into that, let's peel a little bit away at who Father Greg is that runs Homeboy Industries. Homeboy Industries is a nonprofit in downtown Los Angeles that is ran by Father Greg. It is a place where gang members and people who really don't have a lot of other options in terms of vocation end up going to develop useful skills and get treatment for some of the things they've been through. And one of the strongest testimonies I've heard of anyone who's gone through the Homeboy Industries program is a gentleman by the name of Richard Cabral. Check this out.
Father Greg Boyle of Homeboy Industries, if it wasn't for that man, I wouldn't be here today, right? And so if people that don't know who Father Greg is, Father Greg operates the biggest gang nonprofit organization in the fucking world, right? It's been around for almost 35 years. He has worked with just gang members all his life. He has buried close to maybe 250 to this day as we speak. When he came into my life and showed me love, because love gets thrown around too much, right? When he just like did what you're doing right now, bro, just looking at me in the eyes and listening to me, bro. Listening. No one listened, bro. Bro, everybody's crying for help. All these kids are crying for help, but nobody's listening. And it fucked me up. It took so long to truly understand that a person could just genuinely just want to hear me, care about me. If that would have happened before in a real way, not coming in, because a lot of people get this up. You can't come in one day and think that the child's gonna be okay. Give them some good words. If you want to be committed to this, to the help, you have to be committed, bro. You know, and give yourself seasons. No one's saying don't burn out, because I seen that too in this work, bro. I do this work. I'm in the hood because I come from the hood. But it's you have to be willing to go. You know, and yes, but no, bro. If someone would have been there, I think I would have, because when it came, I did listen.
Exactly.
That was Richard Cabral on John Bernthal's Real Ones podcast. John Bernthal's a movie star, podcaster, but so is Richard Cabral. After going through Father Greg's Homeboy Industries program, he went on to become a successful actor starring in shows like The Mayans and American Crime, End of Wad, and a slew of other TV appearances. So the type of people like Richard that have gone through Homeboy Industries have gone through suffering in life and are now choosing to suffer in a different way. In the same way, Father Greg has chosen to sacrifice and suffer by being present with others who have suffered. And that leads to a huge breakthrough for a lot of these people that honestly don't have a lot of other options. Which brings me back to this conversation of passion. Should you follow your passion? Well, as I looked up the word passion, we found the definition that we looked at the beginning of this video. So the first definition of passion is a strong and barely controllable emotion. But you won't believe the second definition of passion found in the Oxford Dictionary. Passion, the very second definition that comes up when you Google passion, is the suffering and death of Jesus. Crucifixion, pain, suffering, agony, martyrdom. So passion, from a worldly standpoint, is about following your heart and your desires and self-actualization. Passion, from a historical standpoint and a scriptural standpoint, is about agony, suffering, and Jesus laying down his life for the sake of people. And it's interesting that in Matthew chapter 16, verse 24, Jesus says, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it." So Jesus demonstrates true passion by what he's willing to lay down and sacrifice on the cross. He then invites his disciples into laying down their own life. Some of them became martyrs. Others laid down their own ways of thinking and their own ideas of their vocation and what they were willing to do or not do. So passion is not just about self-actualization and what you are and aren't willing to do based on what you feel like doing in your wildest dreams. Passion is actually about what are you willing to suffer for. See, Father Greg is willing to suffer to help others who are going through Homeboy Industries. So when it comes to choosing your vocation, it's not about finding something that you love to do so much that you do it for free, and if you can make money from it, whoop-de-doo. No, it's about finding something that you are so passionate about that you're willing to sacrifice yourself for. You're willing to lay down your life and enter agony. It is not about never working a day in your life. It's about finding so much meaning in your work that you're allowing the work to transform you in order to do hard things. There's one of my favorite quotes. If you do what is easy, life will be hard. If you do what is hard, life will be easy. Passion allows us to choose the hard things in life so that over the long haul, our life will become easier. So when it comes to figuring out what you should be doing for your specific assignment in the season that you're in, I want you to reevaluate and consider, what are you willing to sacrifice for? What are you willing to lay down in the short term so that you can have a breakthrough for the benefit of others in the long term? And some of us perhaps have that in mind. Some of us perhaps want to go out and change the world and to help usher in the kingdom of heaven on this side of eternity. But perhaps we're lacking some of the practical skills required to do the thing that we're supposed to be doing. In my case, transitioning from being a rapper to being a YouTuber meant that there was a skill deficit that I had that I need to make up for. There were certain new softwares that I needed to learn, certain new hard skills that I needed to learn, things about cameras and lighting that I needed to learn. Where was I going to find this skill from? Well, because I had a deep passion in the sense of, hey, I know that my voice amplified will be a bigger blessing to people, I was willing to cut out certain things in the short term so that I could make the sacrifice for the long term. So if passion is defined by embracing suffering and agony, when you start something new, it should be hard. Do not be discouraged by it. So how do you do this? Well, unfortunately, that means you have to sacrifice pleasure. Unfortunately, you have to sacrifice the things that feel good in the short term. This is why things like strength training and learning hard skills are good for you. Because when we look at the contrary, it may shock you. I pulled up these numbers and I wanted to share them with you. Check out this quote in terms of American consumption towards media and entertainment. In 2020, consumers in the US spent less than 350 minutes per day using analog media and entertainment formats such as television, radio, or print media. In contrast, they devoted an estimated 470 minutes to digital media and entertainment channels. Even though some traditional formats saw a temporary uptick in demand in 2020, the latest forecast distinctly showed that the media usage gap will continue to widen. Let me simplify that for you. 470 minutes a day is what the average American consumes in media. That's across all formats. That breaks down to almost 8 hours a day we spend consuming television, Netflix, social media, print media, and just kind of detaching from reality. Now, I get it. Sometimes you have long days. Sometimes you might even throw on my video to help you decompress. But what if out of that 8 hours, you chop that in half and you use 4 hours of that to begin developing the very skills that you need to get from where you are to where you want to be so that you could serve and help more people? What if you sacrificed in the short term some of your leisure time and your decompression time to make up for that void you have in lack of skills to get to where you want to get to? Or if you're in debt, what if you sacrifice some of that 8 hours a day and use 6 hours a day on a new side hustle, on some sort of job where you're earning extra income so you could clean up whatever financial messes you made back in the day? Now, I could hear some of you guys right now on the other side of this video, but Ruslan, why should we consume ourselves with earthly matters? Didn't Jesus say, don't store treasure for yourself on earth? Yes, he did. But what we're talking about is actually using earthly commodities like our time, talent, treasure, skills, value that we add to other people to make eternal impacts in the world. If more Christians become the example of what other people are looking up to in terms of finding that freedom to walk in the sweet spot of what God has for them, that could be an amazing impact on the world in terms of helping other people, as well as a great opportunity to spread the gospel. So I don't want any of us to be living our lives stuck in the Truman Show, constantly distracted, living in mediocrity, and not pursuing the reality of what God has for us on this side of eternity. Now, this is just one part of our Discover Your Purpose Now playlist, where you can find other traps that they're trying to use to brainwash you right now. If you'd like to check out the other videos in the series, we'll have that over here. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.